The pressure gauge on line 3 was reading 12 psi over tolerance. That's when you know something's really wrong in automotive parts manufacturing. I stood there watching 350 workers just stop what they were doing, staring at screens that wouldn't respond, machines that wouldn't start their next cycle. The morning supervisor jogged over, sweat already beading on his forehead despite the October chill. Jerry, the whole quality system's locked up. Nobody can access anything. Production lines down, inspection protocols down, even the basic part tracking. What the hell happened? I knew exactly what happened. My name's Gerald Brooks, but everyone calls me Jerry. I'm 48 and I've been working this automotive parts plant for 27 years. Started as a floor technician right out of community college. Worked my way up to senior operations director. Yesterday morning, they locked me out of my own systems. Today, they're learning what that actually means. Let me back up. 18 months ago, our family-owned company got bought out by a corporate conglomerate. They dropped a $3.2 million efficiency overhaul project in my lap. Plant productivity was down 15%, defect rates were up 22%, and our biggest customer, a major Detroit automaker, was making noises about pulling their contract if we couldn't meet their new quality standards. They gave me full authority to redesign everything. Workflow, equipment calibration, quality protocols, supplier integration. The works. I didn't just reorganize the floor, I rebuilt it from the ground up, studied every bottleneck, every wasted motion, every point where defects could slip through. Spent nights here with calipers and spec sheets, mapping tolerance flows like battle plans. The algorithms I developed weren't just spreadsheet formulas. They were 27 years of knowing exactly how precision manufacturing actually worked. Understanding that a brake component tolerance of 0.002 inches isn't just a number on paper, it's the difference between a car stopping safely and a family getting killed. The first thing I did was walk every inch of this floor with the workers themselves. Not the supervisors, not the team leads, but the people who actually touch the parts 8 hours a day. Danny Garcia from Station 12 showed me how the conveyor timing created a 43-second delay every cycle because parts came in at the wrong angle for proper inspection. Rita Johnson from Quality Control explained why the testing sequence was backwards, catching problems that should have been prevented 3 stations earlier. Nobody had ever asked them before. I spent 2 months just listening, learning that the official process documentation hadn't been updated in 4 years. Discovering that half our quality problems came from workers creating workarounds to fix design flaws that management didn't know existed. These people weren't just following procedures, they were actively preventing disasters every single day and getting no credit for it. The redesign took 10 months to implement. We didn't shut down production. Instead, I created a rolling upgrade system, optimizing one section at a time while the rest kept running. Every change got tested by the people who'd have to use it. Every improvement was explained to the workers before implementation, not after. The resistance came from middle management, not the floor. Supervisors worried that empowering workers would make them irrelevant. Department heads complained that the new protocols required them to actually understand the processes they managed. The old system let them manage by metrics and reports. The new system required them to manage by walking around and talking to people. But the numbers don't lie. Within 8 months, productivity was up 28%. Defect rates were down 35%. Worker injuries dropped 40% because the new layouts made sense instead of just looking good on org charts. More importantly, our Detroit customer renewed their contract for 3 years instead of the usual annual review. Corporate noticed. Other plants started asking for my protocols. I got invited to speak at automotive manufacturing conferences. Industry publications wanted to feature our turnaround. For the first time in my career, I felt like I was building something that would last, something that mattered beyond this quarter's numbers. That's when Oliver Barnes showed up, fresh MBA from Wharton, 30 years old, hired as digital transformation director to oversee the final implementation phase. Corporate's idea of adding strategic oversight to my project. Oliver had all the buzzwords: digital integration, AI-driven optimization, Industry 4.0 workflows. He also had the new CFO's ear, a guy named Philip Wagner who'd been brought in 6 months earlier to modernize our operational approach. Wagner came from the tech sector. He believed that manufacturing was just another software problem waiting to be solved with the right algorithms and dashboards. He'd never worked a factory floor, never dealt with the reality of managing 350 people who show up at 6 a.m. regardless of whether the systems are working. To him, Oliver represented the future. Young, educated, fluent in the language of modern business. I represented the past old-school experience in a world that supposedly didn't need that anymore. Oliver started attending my meetings, asking to review my documentation, wanting copies of everything. Just getting up to speed, he'd say. Want to understand the full scope so I can support you better. He was polite, enthusiastic, full of praise for what I'd accomplished. I figured having management backing couldn't hurt. The project was working. Numbers don't lie, and I had nothing to hide. That was my first mistake. Oliver was smart, I'll give him that. He didn't attack my results directly. Instead, he started questioning my methods. In meetings, he'd mention industry best practices that supposedly showed better approaches. He'd bring up articles about legacy thinking holding back manufacturing innovation, always framed as constructive suggestions, never direct criticism. But I started noticing the pattern. Every suggestion involved replacing human judgment with automated systems. Every improvement meant fewer workers making decisions and more algorithms making them instead. Oliver wasn't interested in optimizing what we'd built. He was interested in replacing it with something that didn't require people like me to understand it. Wagner ate it up. Here's this young guy with fresh ideas talking about taking our improvements to the next level. Meanwhile, I'm the old-timer who's resistant to new approaches. Oliver made sure to position himself as the bridge between my valuable experience and cutting-edge methodology. What really bothered me wasn't the corporate politics. I'd dealt with that for 27 years. What bothered me was watching Oliver miss the point entirely. He'd walk the floor with his tablet, taking notes about optimization opportunities, but he never actually talked to the workers. When Danny Garcia tried to explain why a particular sequence mattered, Oliver would nod politely and then suggest we leverage automation to eliminate the human variable entirely. He didn't understand that the human variable wasn't a bug in the system, it was the feature that made everything else work. You can't automate 27 years of knowing that machine 7 runs hot on humid days, or that Rita can spot a stress fracture by sound alone, or that the third shift crew always catches problems the day shift misses because they approach quality control differently. 4 months before final rollout, Oliver requested access to my core algorithms. The board wants to understand the technical foundation, he explained. They need confidence that our approach is scalable to other facilities. Made sense. I gave him read-only access to the systems. I should have paid more attention to what he was actually doing with that access. Oliver wasn't just reviewing my work. He was studying it like someone preparing to recreate it. He'd spend hours in the system, not just reading the algorithms, but tracing through every decision tree, every conditional statement, every exception handler I'd built in. When I asked about his progress, he'd mentioned being impressed by the sophistication and wanting to fully understand the architecture. 2 weeks later, he was back asking for editing privileges. Found some potential optimization opportunities, he said. Minor adjustments that could boost our results by another 18%. He had a presentation ready, full of charts showing projected improvements that looked impressive on paper. I should have said no, should have asked to see his analysis first, demanded to understand exactly what he wanted to change and why. But the numbers were already so good, and 18% more would make this project legendary. Plus, Oliver had Wagner's backing, and Wagner controlled the budget for next year's expansion. I gave him the access. That was my second mistake. Things started going sideways, but so gradually I didn't notice at first. Oliver began showing up for early morning system reviews that I wasn't invited to. He'd schedule meetings with department heads without looping me in. When I asked about it, he'd say he was gathering stakeholder input to ensure smooth change management. The language started changing too. In meetings, people stopped talking about Jerry's system and started referring to the operational framework. My algorithms became the optimization protocols. The relationships I'd built with workers became stakeholder engagement initiatives. Laura Peterson, our plant supervisor, pulled me aside one Tuesday morning. Laura's been here 22 years, worked her way up from the line to supervision through pure competence. She knows every worker by name, understands every process intimately, and doesn't waste time on politics. Jerry, something's off. Oliver's been asking questions about your algorithms, but not normal questions. He wants to know what happens if certain protocols get modified, keeps pushing scenarios where the systems might fail. She lowered her voice. He's also been talking to people about sustainable leadership transition and knowledge transfer protocols. That phrase hit me wrong. Knowledge transfer usually means one thing in corporate America. They're getting ready to fire someone and want to make sure their work can continue without them. What kind of scenarios is he asking about? I asked. Peak production periods, system overloads. What happens if the worker feedback loops get disabled? What happens if the algorithms run without the human oversight components? Laura paused, glancing around to make sure nobody was listening. Jerry, those aren't optimization questions. Those are sabotage questions. That night, I stayed late to check the system logs. What I found made my stomach drop. Oliver had been making changes. Small ones buried deep in complex subroutines, but changes nonetheless. He'd modified error handling protocols, adjusted timing sequences, and altered the feedback mechanisms that allowed workers to signal problems before they became critical. When I ran projections on his modifications, they didn't improve anything. If anything, they introduced potential failure points. The changes were subtle but systematic, designed to create exactly the kind of cascading failures that would make the whole system look unstable under stress. I confronted him the next morning. Oliver, I noticed some alterations to the core protocols. Can you walk me through the reasoning? He didn't miss a beat, just some minor calibrations based on the latest performance data, nothing that changes your fundamental approach, just optimizing the execution. He pulled up a presentation I'd never seen. I've been tracking some metrics that suggest we can push efficiency gains even higher. The presentation was impressive: charts, graphs, projections showing 40% improvement over baseline. Problem was, the data didn't match what I was seeing on the floor. Some of the metrics he was citing didn't even exist in our tracking systems. Others were extrapolated from single data points or based on theoretical maximums that ignored real-world constraints. Where did these numbers come from? I asked. Predictive modeling based on industry benchmarks and system capacity analysis. Oliver clicked through slides with the confidence of someone who'd never had to explain a production line failure to 350 angry workers. The algorithms show significant headroom for improvement if we can eliminate some of the current bottlenecks. By bottlenecks, he meant the safety protocols and human oversight systems that prevented disasters. That's when I realized what was happening. Oliver wasn't trying to improve my project. He was setting it up to fail in a way that would make his solution look necessary. His modifications would cause system conflicts during peak production periods, create bottlenecks that would look like design flaws, generate false error reports that would make the whole thing seem unstable. When the project crashed, he'd be there with his improved version, a fully automated system that didn't require people like me to understand it. Wagner would get his modern technology-driven solution. Oliver would get his promotion, and I'd be the old-timer whose outdated approach couldn't handle the demands of modern manufacturing. I started building my defense that same night. First thing was backing up all my original algorithms to a personal server, complete with timestamps and change logs that would prove what I'd built versus what Oliver had modified. Then I started having quiet conversations with key people about what they had observed. Eddie Walsh, our head of maintenance, confirmed what I suspected. Oliver's been asking about equipment tolerance limits. What happens if systems get pushed beyond design specs? Says he needs to understand failure modes for risk management. Eddie paused, adjusting his work gloves. But Jerry, those aren't risk management questions. Those are sabotage questions. He wants to know exactly how much stress it takes to break something. Monica Rivera from the union had her own concerns. He's been inquiring about grievance procedures, asking how quickly we can replace workers if there are performance issues during the transition. Talking about bringing in temporary contractors who are more adaptable to new systems. Monica's been fighting for workers here longer than I've been in management. She understands power and how it really works. Jerry, he's planning to blame the workers when his changes fail. Set up a scenario where it looks like human error caused the problems, not his modifications. Steve Cooper, who runs our equipment maintenance contracts, had the most damaging information. Oliver contacted me directly about modifying some of the safety protocols in our service agreements. Wanted to know if we could streamline some of the redundancy systems to improve efficiency. Steve and I go back 18 years. His company services half the plants in the region. When I told him any changes had to go through you first, he didn't like that answer. Started asking about replacing our maintenance contract with a company that would be more flexible about safety standards. The picture was getting clearer. Oliver wasn't just planning to sabotage my algorithms. He was systematically removing every safety net, every human oversight system, Every relationship-based quality control that made the operation actually work. When the inevitable failures happened, he'd blame outdated systems, resistant workers, and unrealistic safety requirements. Then he'd implement his solution, a fully automated system with minimal human input, streamlined safety protocols, and maintenance contracts that prioritized cost over reliability. It would look great in quarterly reports right up until someone got seriously hurt, or we had a catastrophic quality failure that cost millions in rockholes. 1 week before final rollout, I got called into a board meeting. Wagner was there along with Oliver and 2 executives I didn't recognize from corporate. They had charts and presentations ready, which told me this wasn't going to be a discussion. "Jerry, we appreciate everything you've built here," Wagner started. "The improvements have been significant. However, we've identified some concerns about the sustainability of your approach." Oliver took over, clicking to his first slide. "The systems Jerry designed work, but they're essentially black boxes. If something goes wrong, only he can fix them. That creates unacceptable risk for a multi-million-dollar operation. We need more transparent, standardized protocols." He walked through his presentation methodically. Charts showing my algorithms as overly complex, graphs demonstrating how my approach created dangerous single points of failure, risk assessments that painted my reliance on worker feedback as subjective decision-making that compromised consistency. Every concern they raised was manufactured. Every risk they identified was created by Oliver's modifications, but they had corporate buzzwords, colorful charts, and the confidence that comes from never having to explain a production failure to real people. "We think it's best if I take operational control for the final implementation phase," Oliver concluded. "Jerry can stay involved in a consulting capacity, but we need someone with fresh eyes managing the day-to-day execution." I sat there watching my own project get stolen in real time. The 2 corporate executives nodded along like they understood what they were voting on. Wagner looked relieved to finally have someone speaking his language. Oliver looked confident, professional, ready to take charge. "What exactly are you planning to change?" I asked. "Nothing fundamental," Oliver assured me. "Just some efficiency optimizations and risk mitigation protocols. The core of what you built remains intact." That was a lie, and we both knew it. But the decision was already made. They handed me a revised org chart with Oliver as lead operations director, and my name moved to senior technical advisor, consulting role. No system access, no direct authority, just valuable input when requested. I should have fought harder right then. Should have demanded they examine Oliver's modifications, called out the manufactured data, insisted on a technical review by people who actually understood automotive manufacturing, but I was tired. 18 months of 16-hour days of caring more about this place than anyone else in that room, of being the only person who seemed to understand that 350 jobs depended on getting this right. Part of me wanted to let someone else carry the weight for once. That was my 3rd mistake. They locked me out that afternoon. Security badge deactivated, system account suspended, even my parking spot reassigned. Temporary measure, they said, just while we transition operational authority. Oliver walked me to my car, all fake sympathy and professional courtesy. "Don't take this personally, Jerry. Your work here has been incredible. We just need to ensure continuity going forward." He paused at my driver's door. "Get some rest. You've earned it." I drove home and spent the evening staring at my backup servers, looking at 18 months of work that was about to get twisted into someone else's victory. But as I sat there, something shifted in my thinking. They could lock me out of the office, but they couldn't lock me out of the relationships I'd built. The trust I'd earned with workers, vendors, and union representatives didn't get transferred just because they changed my title on an org chart. That's when I started making calls. First call was to Laura. "They locked me out," I told her. "Oliver's running the show now." Her response was immediate. "That's insane. He doesn't know half of what you built. Hell, he doesn't know a quarter of it. Doesn't matter. He's got corporate backing and a fancy presentation. Jerry, listen to me. This place runs on relationships, not presentations. People trust you. They don't know Oliver from Adam, and they sure don't trust him with their livelihoods." Second call was to Monica. "They can lock you out of the office," she said. "They can't lock you out of people's trust. You know what happens when Oliver's modifications start causing problems? People are going to call you, not him, and when they do, we'll be ready." The third call was to Steve. "They've got a new guy running my project now. Oliver Barnes. He might be calling about equipment modifications, you recommending him." "I'm not recommending anything. Just letting you know there's been a change in management." Steve understood immediately. In our business, personal recommendations matter more than corporate org charts. Trust gets earned over years and lost in minutes. Oliver might have Wagner's authority, but he didn't have anyone's confidence. That was yesterday. Today, the whole plant ground to a halt because Oliver's modifications created exactly the system failures I knew they would. The overnight production run hit the first cascade failure at 3:47 a.m. By morning shift, nothing worked. I stayed home, let my phone go to voicemail. Oliver called 8 times. Wagner called 6 times. Corporate called 3 times. Laura called once with a status update, and I took that one. It's a complete mess, she said. Oliver's running around with printouts trying to figure out why the systems are rejecting the production schedules. The modified protocols are conflicting with the equipment firmware. Workers are standing around getting paid to do nothing because nobody can tell them what to do. What's Oliver saying? That it's a temporary integration issue that will be resolved shortly. Problem is, his modifications broke the diagnostic routines too. The system can't even tell us what's wrong, let alone how to fix it. Laura paused. Jerry, people are scared. They're asking if the plant's going to shut down, if they should be looking for other jobs. I hung up and drove to the diner across from the plant. Same booth by the window where I used to eat lunch during the construction phase. Perfect view of the main entrance and the loading docks. By 10 a.m., it was chaos. Delivery trucks backed up down the street because receiving couldn't process incoming materials. Finished goods sitting on the loading dock because shipping couldn't access the inventory database. My phone buzzed with texts. Eddie, Oliver's asking if you left any hidden documentation that might explain the system failures. Monica, workers are asking if you're coming back. They want to know if they should be worried about their jobs. And then the call I was waiting for. Wagner, sounding nothing like the confident executive from yesterday's meeting. Jerry, we need to talk. There are some technical issues with the rollout that require your input. I'm not involved in operations anymore. Remember? This is Oliver's show now. This is temporary, just until we stabilize the systems. What systems? I don't have access to any systems. A pause. In the background, I could hear alarms, shouting, the sound of expensive machinery sitting idle. We can restore your access temporarily. Emergency authorization. I let that sit for a moment. What kind of emergency? Production's been down for 8 hours. We're losing $65,000 per hour in missed deliveries. Oliver says the issues are related to some legacy protocols that weren't properly documented. Legacy protocols. That's what they were calling my work now. Oliver made modifications to the core algorithms without understanding the interdependencies. The failures aren't bugs, they're features of his changes. Another pause. Can you fix it? That was the question I'd been waiting for. Not will you help us? Not what would you recommend? But can you fix it? Because they already knew I was the only one who could. Maybe I'd need full system access, operational authority, and a written guarantee that no one makes changes without my approval. Done. How quickly can you be here? For the next 12 hours, I walked Oliver through every modification, explaining how each one created cascading failures throughout the system. It wasn't malicious incompetence, it was just incompetence. Oliver understood business theory, but he didn't understand manufacturing reality. He treated the plant like a computer program that could be optimized with better code, not realizing that automotive manufacturing is a complex system where human judgment prevents disasters. The fixes took 14 hours to implement properly, not because they were complicated, but because I had to undo all of Oliver's improvements while explaining to him why each change was necessary. He took notes like a graduate student, asking questions that showed he'd never really understood what I'd built. By evening shift, production was back online. By the end of the week, we were running better than before Oliver's modifications. The workers relaxed, the supervisors stopped looking stressed, and the loading docks returned to their normal, organized rhythm. The board meeting happened the following Tuesday. Different tone this time. The 2 corporate executives who'd nodded along with Oliver's presentation were notably absent. Wagner started with an apology and ended with an offer. Executive VP of Manufacturing Operations, 35% salary increase, direct report to corporate, and authority over quality standards across all 4 plants. Oliver got reassigned to Junior Operations Analyst, reporting directly to me. Learning opportunity, they called it. Chance to understand manufacturing from the ground up. I accepted both offers. For the next year, Oliver worked under my supervision, learning what automotive manufacturing actually involves. Not the theory from business school, but the reality of managing 350 people $80 million in equipment, and quality standards that don't care about your PowerPoint presentations. He turned out to be a decent analyst once he stopped trying to revolutionize everything. The plant's running at 132% of baseline efficiency now. Corporate's using our protocols at 6 other facilities. I've got budget authority for a $6.8 million expansion that'll add 120 jobs and increase our capacity by 40%. People ask if I regret not just walking away, letting Oliver's incompetence destroy everything and proving my point. But here's what I learned. The best revenge isn't watching someone fail. It's being so essential that their failure becomes impossible to ignore. Then using that leverage to build something better. They didn't just lock me out of my project. They locked themselves out of competence. When I came back, it wasn't as the guy who saved the day. It was as the guy they couldn't afford to lose again. That's the kind of victory that lasts. In the end, they thought they were replacing me with someone cheaper and more compliant. What they actually did was replace competence with ambition and discover that ambition without knowledge is just expensive ignorance. The real lesson isn't about workplace politics or corporate betrayal. It's that true expertise can't be stolen, only earned. And when you try to shortcut that process, reality has a way of demanding payment with interest.
Don't pity me. My heart doesn't need your mercy. I can still stand on my own. I was broken by your leaving, fell deeper than I thought I would. But pain has taught me how to heal now and survive what once I couldn't. You don't have to look back sadly, don't reach out with guilty hands. What you shattered made me stronger. Now I rise where I once collapsed. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll learn to breathe again. I once begged for your affection. Now I've learned my worth in scars. And the man you left in pieces found his own way through the dark. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll learn to breathe again. So keep your sympathy behind you. I don't need what's left undone. Sometimes losing who once broke you is how healing has begun. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll rise alone again. I'll rise alone again. Some days feel off, like I'm standing but still falling. A little pain, a little tired, and no one to tell it all to. There are days that feel unsteady, like I'm drifting out of place. Every step just feels so heavy, with a smile I have to fake. A little hurt I keep inside me, a little weight I always hide, and 1,000 quiet worries I've been holding deep inside. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. I keep walking through the silence like it's all I've ever known. Every crowded room reminds me how it feels to be alone. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. Maybe one day I'll be stronger, maybe I'll learn how to speak, but for now I keep it buried in the parts of me too weak. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you.